All right. Well, you can now buy anime and guns again. So this comes from the FTC.org. Now this is from .org, so take it with a grain of salt. Government bias. The FTC chairman Andrew and Ferguson issues warning letters to CEOs of PayPal, Stripe, Visa, and Mastercard about debanking American consumers. Uh, Federal Trade Commission Chairman Andrew N. Ferguson sent letters today to, like it says today, it was like 3 days ago, to four major financial infrastructure platforms and payment providers, reminding them of their obligations to their customers under the FTC Act. The letter issued to the CEOs of PayPal, Stripe, Visa, and Mastercard raised concerns about publicity about raised concerns about publicly reported examples of financial service companies denying their customers access to services due to their political or religious views, and more, but we'll get to that later. Quote, full participation in commerce and public life necessarily requires that law abiding individuals can access and freely participate in our financial system, unquote, Chairman Ferguson wrote. Quote, it is inconsistent with American values to deny law abiding individuals the ability to run their legitimate businesses and feed their families because they attracted the ire of rogue American officials, overzealous activists, or more worryingly, foreign governments seeking to control public discourse. End quote. He continued, quote, that is why President Trump's August 7th, 2025 executive order on debanking makes clear that it is unacceptable to debank law-abiding citizens due to political affiliations, religious beliefs, or lawful business activities. Unquote. The letters warn the companies that any act or practice of denying of deplat to or practice to deplatform consumers or deny them access to financial products or services, or to facilitate such conduct by other companies that is that is inconsistent with their terms of service or a customer's reasonable expectations may violate the FTC Act and could lead to the FTC investigation and potential enforcement action. The FTC in recent years has brought numerous enforcement actions against payment infrastructure platforms and related entities for unfair or deceptive practices, including misleading merchants about fees and contract terms and facilitating fraud on consumers, including through the means of card networks. View all warning letters at that site, whatever. The Federal Trade Commission works to promote competition and protect and educate consumers. The FTC will never deny money, make threats, tell you to transfer money, or promise you a prize. You can learn more about the consumer topics and report scams, fraud, and bad business practices online at blah blah blah. Okay, cool. So I know they talked about like your political affirmations or religious belief. But I also think, at least in my mind, because I'm on Steam, I remember there was like Steam removed a bunch of their adult content because Visa and MasterCard were threatening to like not allow access to, you can't buy things on Steam
Hmm.
using those cards because they didn't like the games that were being purchased with those cards. Uh I no, that you're there to provide the service. I use your card. You take a portion of the payments. I buy what I want. It's legal. Whatever. So, a couple things to keep in mind is a firm is considered a monopoly not just by its market share, but by its ability to keep others out. When a few dominant players control the means of exchange, their decision to deny service is not it's not a simple private transaction, but an exercise of market power that can quote cripple unquote the economy or a business. And they own, like, again, PayPal, Stripe, Visa, Mastercard. Basically, I mean, I know there's other stuff out there, but that's kind of it. Like, I have a Dave account. That Dave account uses a Visa card. It's all of your most of your payments. I'd say probably about 95% of your payments are going through these four people. So they shouldn't be allowed to be like, hey, especially since they're under FTC rules, whatever. They shouldn't be allowed
Hmm.
to deny you, a consumer, things you want to buy, assuming it's legal. Just because they don't like it, that doesn't mean that they can't deny that of you. So it's kind of when I bring up the concept of like an oligarchy when it comes to businesses, kind of what I'm talking about. Not usually when I'm talking about like an oligarchy with business, it's usually for like price manipulation kind of stuff. Like I won't undercut your prices if you don't undercut mine, but this is just another example about that. And even it even states what's called later in the article that I have a note here. Capitalism without competition is not capitalism, and that's a quote from The Myth of Capitalism. In a highly concentrated market, dominant firms can set terms that participants must accept, which is a departure from the idealized state of capitalism, where individuals can make transactions on whatever they can mutually agree on. Uh, again, it's I did hear reports. This was like a year or two ago, but like they're thinking about making so that you can't buy guns with Visa and Mastercards. I already talked about how they were threatening Steam for their adult
Hmm.
content games. Um, anything else? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, going to like banks as a form of banks or really any financial system as a form of like rule enforcement, like, oh, hey, we don't want banks interacting with, um, like, yeah, we don't like, for example, if you're Mastercard, having the capacity to sort of unilaterally go, I have made this decision. Let's say you're a big enough like bank like Mastercard or JP Morgan, and you choose to go, you know what? We don't want people buying, you know, baby formula or guns with our finance with through our system. So we're basically just going to say, hey, if you have a Mastercard, you can't do this. And like ostensibly, it's like, oh, okay, they're a private company, they have the ability to do that, blah blah blah. It's like kind of, because on the other side of that is like if you become ubiquitous enough or large enough, you are no longer like a small private entity who's allowed to make their own choices, and um, the broader effects aren't gonna like majorly like hit other parts of society. But like if a huge bank or multiple of them start going, no, we don't want our services to be used to purchase XYZ product, that can actually just be like straight up like suppression of like your rights. Like it's like, hey, we don't think you should be doing this. It's like, I don't care what you think. Your job is to take the money from one place and put it in another place. You like can theory because like in theory, right? If you wanted to basically like say that someone has right, your rights only exist insofar as you have the capacity to express them, right? So if you were to be like, hey, um, we're a company, but we don't want you know people buying like Buddhist religious devices. We're like the entire financial system is like, actually we don't want people buying Buddhist religious symbols using our stuff. It's like, well, hold on. Well, that now just Buddhists can't actually effectively engage in their religion, or hey, we don't want people to use our stuff to buy, communion wafers and stuff like that. We don't want to do that. It's like, well, hold on. This is like gone from small personal preference to potentially large scale rights infringement, um, that majorly prevents people from like acting on their rights. And this has always been like a huge back and forth in the financial sector. I remember years ago, there's a whole like it's the reason PayPal exists in the first place. Um, and same with like Venmo and a lot of the other stuff was because like people could use it basically for like payment for sex work, which I mean is I think illegal in the United States.
It is, yeah.
But like you could use it for that where it's like, okay, well hold on, how much responsibility does the financial system have to monitor what's being bought through them, or is it just their job to kind of, are they sort of like in the IRS position where like you're allowed to sort of take record and take account but it won't get reported, or yeah, like it's a very touchy issue when it comes to financial large financial systems deciding what Americans can and cannot spend their money on, because they can very quickly go from small issue to, hey, you are fully suppressing this entire group's ability to exercise this right that they're allowed to do that you may not find personally enjoyable or
Oh,
flattering for your business model.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you brought up the point, like with the Buddhist symbol, like well, obviously when we think of a swastika, a lot of people think of the obviously the Nazis during World War II and the KKK, whatever. And but as I like to imagine, a lot of people know, but the more I'm on social media, the more I'm proven otherwise. It doesn't originate from what's it called, doesn't originate from Nazis during World
Germany.
War II. It stems from Buddhism, if I'm not mistaken. Like, there's a swastika and there's
Hmm.
the four dots. And on top of that, it's not even the same shape. You have to, if I'm not mistaken, you have to flip the swastika over make the uh, to make the Buddha symbol. But because it seems like a lot of people don't care, that means people who do actually understand Buddhism and stuff like that, and let's say Mastercard or Visa is like, you can't buy that. It looks too much like a swastika. Well, then now we just denied an entire religion
Hmm.
of their symbol, and that's very fascistic. Um, and that can lead to whole sorts of other things, like like if legal businesses are denied access to payment processing, they're essentially severed from like the modern marketplace. Whether it's like, I mean, maybe local's okay, but like obviously the goal is to reach international. You have people buying your product from all over the world, and then now you can't, just because people use a credit card service, which, let's be honest, they're just processing transactions. I can't imagine I can't think of the last time Visa or Mastercard, in my mind, did something for me that I would be like, yeah, that improved my life. I
Hmm.
can't think of one. Um, I have a in my mind, it was a funny note. And things like adult anime and like other desired goods and services, and the access to them, creates a better life for everyone. Inefficiencies in turning inputs into outputs translates to a lower standard of living for a society as a whole. By mandating access to all legal businesses, the government aims to ensure that the volume of goods and services is not artificially suppressed by the Visa and Mastercard. I mainly say Visa and Mastercard. I haven't heard a lot of PayPal or Stripe denying Steam access or whatever, but anyways, it
Not to my
prevents them
knowledge.
from gatekeeping people's hard-earned money. At the end of the day, it's still your money. That they're just telling you what you can do with it, which is not good. uh, Again, very fascistic. Let's see. What were some notes I got on here? Let's see. Oh yeah, so I have a note right here. If access to the market is not rationed by prices or legal status, but by the quote disposition unquote of a few powerful firms, it replaces market coordination with a form of private planning that is it essentially proven to be less effective for society than automated price coordination. If you need an example, just look at communism from like the 50s to the late 90s. That communism, at least that economic idea of communism, uh, it was just I get it was mainly it's a bad idea because it lacked the rapid information processing that the corrective discipline of price coordinated and profit and loss systems have. Like I remember there was I forgot what it was. I don't think it was the leader of Russia or the Soviet Union, one of the two. Uh, I think it might have been like the head of their economic department or whatever. But they asked
Hmm.
Margaret Thatcher how they coordinated their markets and chose prices, because at the time, like Russia had a under communism, had a special department for determining the prices of literally each and every item available
Hmm.
on the Russian market. And there is no way they could keep up with, what is popular, what isn't popular. And because of that, that
Or what's
means,
needed.
or what's needed, absolutely, yeah. So you hear stories about these like Russian cars that are sitting in warehouses to this day gathering rust because they made so much, but nobody was buying them, so that information wasn't relayed to the automotive makers. Well, I feel like they would know, but they didn't change anything about it. And they just didn't stop making them. So things that probably should have gone up in price have not. Things that should have dropped in price did not. And everyone was poor and starving. But they asked, Margaret Thatcher, and she's like, I don't do any. She was like, just essentially, she was like, I don't do anything. I let the businesses and the people decide for all that. And well, the money essentially flows where it needs to go. So there shouldn't be a higher form dictating what you, the consumer, and a business is selling you. As I assume, it's illegal. I will state
Mm-hmm.
that, but because that with communism, essentially, it's gonna it's not gonna tell people or businesses where to start allocating their scarce resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so yay for not yay for no
Woo.
fascism.
Yeah, it's bad when companies try to plan economies, and it's bad when or it's less efficient when companies try to plan economies, and it's less efficient when governments try to plan economies.
Yeah,
But it
you.
is more enriching for both parties to do so. So,
Mm-hmm. So vote with your wallet, I guess. Um,